Well, we predicted here on this show that if you want to entice farmers, get them to work for you to get the cocoa beans, you need to hike the price to a level that they will be satisfied with. The first announcement came somewhere in August 2025. Farmers weren't happy. Government has decided to adjust and add 400 cedis more. Are they happy? Will this solve the problem, especially smuggling? And will this put us in a very good position in terms of competing with the likes of Ivory Coast and other neighboring countries where majority of our cocoa beans we find there as smuggled beans? That is what we'll be discussing here on Beyond the Numbers. The current price increment in cocoa, is it enough to curb the smuggling and then also get farmers to get onto the grounds to produce more for us to possibly get back to the level where we were when we were the #1 producer of cocoa in the world? We'll be going through the numbers and tell you why government decided to come to the market twice to announce cocoa price, the farm gate price of cocoa, and the reasoning behind the current 400 cedis, adjustment that farmers are about to witness. December is fast approaching. Farmers are expected to be happy. Government announced a raft of, other incentives. Are they working? We'll have all the answers for you here on the show. Winston Taki will be away today, and as usual, the man with every detail, Caleb Ziblim, has joined me. Caleb, we predicted this and we said that, well, government made a very important justification that, well, we've seen the exchange rate situation and we cannot grant you the increment you were looking for, but accept more than 100 cedis for now, about 120 cedis or 100 and something cedis for now. I don't know, government didn't make a promise that they were going to adjust, but that was what was announced. The government decided to announce in dollars before cedis. But this time around, they changed the narrative even with the announcement, announcing in cedis because it carried more weight in cedis than possibly in dollars. The big question here is, if you decide to always enter the market first in terms of your pricing, you are likely to do some of these things, especially when you are dealing with Ivory Coast, the world's biggest producer or largest producer of the beans. They possibly were watching us to see whether that's actually like a game theory, right? We came to the market first. Ivory Coast now made an informed decision, decided to hike their price to a certain level, and just few hours after that, we had to respond with a new price adjustment. What possibly went into this whole metrics in terms of bringing to farmers an additional 400 cedis?
Well, I think the main thing that the government took into consideration is the disparity between Cote d'Ivoire's price and Ghana's price.
Yeah.
Because, like you said earlier, Ghana announced ours first, and then somewhere a few weeks ago, Cote d'Ivoire announced theirs. And then once Cote d'Ivoire did theirs was way higher than Ghana's one. Yeah. So once Cote d'Ivoire did that, once Cote d'Ivoire did that, the government had to come into the market and increase their farm gates. Otherwise, there'll be smuggling. And we'll get into the smuggling figures very soon. So I think the main reason that the government is doing this is to curb smuggling. And then there's a B to it as well. The B is that even though the smuggling is another question, the exchange rate is a major factor. Because you are giving farmers 10 cedis, 25 pesos for their cocoa. The exchange rate they are using to calculate the cocoa for farmers. If you are giving them 10 cedis, 25 pesos, and right now, for the past few months, it has been around 12 cedis. 12 cedis, 40 pesos, 12 cedis, 50 pesos currently. It means that farmers will feel shortchanged and they'll be angry. And once that's already at the side, and then their neighbor, Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire, has almost 4,000 cedis per bag, per 64 kg bag, farmers are going to try and smuggle their goods because, one, they're not happy with government for giving them such a low exchange rate, and then Cote d'Ivoire, just around the corner, has higher exchange rates and then higher farm gate price for them. So definitely, if you're a government and you see these two factors, your neighbor Cote d'Ivoire having a much higher farm gate price than you, and also farmers not feeling that they've really earned enough, because when you started the season, you gave them just 128 cedis increase. Yeah. So they were already not happy. Farmers were not happy. And you know how the rhetoric was around the campaign time where government said, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. So there was some euphoria in the atmosphere. Farmers were expecting so much more than this. So if farmers are already not happy about 128 increments in the first place, now Ivory Coast has increased theirs more than yours, and then also the exchange rate has gone up significantly as to what you introduced in the first part of the season, or when you were announcing the prices. definitely you have to catch up. If you don't catch up, your cocoa sector is going to be in trouble.
This is nowhere near the world market price. I mean, I was looking at a chart published by a Swiss company, and in fact, when I saw the chart, I saw why sometimes farmers are a bit agitated, and sometimes certain farmers or some of the farmers decide to even sell their cocoa farms to whoever they want to sell it to. I was looking at the entire value chain of cocoa, and per every ton that is sold across the world or around the world, you have farmers getting just about 6.6% of the value.
Yeah.
Retailers getting more than 30%. Chocolate producers and grinders getting a significant component of that. So definitely what you see is that farmers are not best placed to actually enjoy big profit in terms of what happens in the world market because of the levels where even retailers are getting more. So usually what you need to do as a government is that when you are coming to announce cocoa price, it's a very strategic game. You need to get your game right, because once you send the first negative signal, you are not possibly getting farmers, and farmers will react, and that will send a certain signal also to those who are building the black market and the smuggling market and all of that. And we've said here on Beyond over and over again that no farmer wakes up and says, I'm smuggling my cocoa beans to Ivory Coast. No. There is a cartel that are able to attract some of these farmers. So they are able to exploit the difference between what is on, the price in Ivory Coast, the price in Togo, possibly the price in, Burkina Faso, and create that cartel to actually get the smuggled goods through. But we have been doing the analysis, and what you see is that the initial price of cocoa was somewhere around 3,228.75 Ghana cedis per every 64 kg bag, and that price has now increased to 3,625. And I keep saying this. Last year, around December, I was, in Bosomefre, and I visited about 7 cocoa farms trying to gauge the mood of farmers and how they feel about that 1,000 cedis that was added. You remember that took the cocoa price to about 3,000. And farmers were very, very happy. Even though around that time there were still structural issues, they were very happy. And once you raise farmers, their taste buds to such an increase, and from 1,000 to 128 cedis, you definitely will get them talking. And so my question again is this 400 cedis enough? Does it reflect the true position that farmers want to be at the moment?
Okay, so if you look at the world market price of cocoa, it's dropping. When Cocoa Board announced the farm gate price, it was about $7,000 per ounce. I checked today, it was about $6,000 per ton. Sorry, not per ounce, per ton. So it's dropping. And if you look at the trend over the past year, you can see it's dropping. It went to a high of about $11,000 per ton, and that's about $6,000. And the forecast is that it might stabilize around the 6,000 or 5,000 thereabouts. And if you do the math again, if you use the 10-25 exchange rate the government gave them, they're giving farmers about $5,000. And if the world market price today is about $6,000, you see that farmers are actually benefiting from it a bit. But if you change the exchange rate, if you use 12 cedis where we currently are, or if you want to go to the black markets around 13 cedis where we are, you see that the gap between what farmers are getting and what's on the world markets widens.
Remember, we had a whole discussion and debate on this when the government
decided to use the 10 cedis.
Yeah, there was a whole debate why they decided to even peg at 10 cedis 25 pesos, because we were certain that 10 cedis 25 pesos was not the true position of the cedi.
It cannot be sustained for a year.
Exactly. And you are farmers were being locked in at 10 cedis 25 pesos. And the question was, who even gets to decide the exchange rate to be used? Because if you listen to Randy Abe and Cocoa Board, the analogy was that they were using the average over the period. And if you strike the average, it was way higher than 10 cedis 25 pesos.
Around 14, went to 15.
Exactly. The average can never, ever be 10 cedis 25 pesos when you have outliers around 14 cedis 70 pesos. So farmers had every right to complain around that time. But government was also looking at e-books, how much it was going to get, because we are already saying that we are giving you 70% of the FOB price. Meanwhile, the promise we all remember was 70% of the world market price. There's a difference. The FOB price is what we set as a country. That's the free on board price minus insurance and other charges. But the world market price is what gets, charged on the global scene, the price we track almost every day.
Yeah.
And that has been it. And especially when we're talking about the taste buds that farmers have been introduced to at the moment, you see the significant increases, especially in periods where the city hasn't performed so well. Cocoa price usually gets to go up, and in election years. But just look at the trajectory, and what you see is that this new arrangement or this new announcement by the finance minister takes the current increment or the cumulative increase to about 12.27%. I'm beginning to think that, well, we are in a very difficult situation because of the smuggling data we have seen, of course, which we'll go to very soon. But the question is, 10 cedis 25 pesos for the first price, and the current situation where government says that you take this, I'm going to close the remaining gap with the incentives. Would you say that farmers are better off, especially looking at the current price and the incentive so far? If they combine the two, would they be better off compared to the periods where prices went as high as 53.5% and 58.26%?
Well, when we did the conversation earlier, we saw that in the South American countries, they are increasing their use because farmers get enough money to reinvest into their farms.
Yeah.
Now, government is saying that, and the government here is saying that instead of giving you all the money, we'll subsidize some of the other things that goes into your production to help you increase yield.
So essentially, it's your own money.
Essentially, your own money, because it's cocoa balls proteins that they use to get the fertilizers and all of that. But then the problem is that we've been doing this for so many years, and it's not seem to be working. And if you look to our neighbors, Ivory Coast, one of the main reasons that Ivory Coast is be able to increase their yields year on year is because they have so many processors in house. So in Ivory Coast, they have companies that can buy the cocoa beans, processors before they export them.
We'll talk about the China situation as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So before the cocoa beans leave Ivory Coast, there's value added to it. And once there's value added, farmers will be happy because they get easy cash for their cocoa beans. Retailers the processors can pay them more if they want them to, produce more and all of that. So that's how come Ivory Coast has been consistently been ahead of Ghana. One of the main factors. So if you want to bring that into Ghana, it's just about making the farmers happy. And sometimes, some people even say that scrap off the incentives, take away the scholarship scheme, take away the free fertilizers, take away...
Sometimes not even the farmers, the walls of the farmers don't even get to benefit.
Exactly, and that's another problem. Not even just the scholarship, but then the fertilizers. We had some issues where fertilizers were being removed from the bags and then,
My grandfather was a cocoa crutcher. I tried cocoa board scholarship for like 2 years. I never got it, right?
Yeah.
But my grandfather was a cocoa crutcher of Bosome Freon. Never got it.
Yeah, so that's the problem. So once farmers see that the incentives that are supposed to help them are not getting them the way they are intended to, and then the price they are giving them for their raw cocoa beans are not also high enough as they see their other farmers getting different parts of the world. That's where the problem starts. That's where the problem begins from. So if you don't address the problem of farmers being happy, farmers being what's the word? Farmers trying to be comfortable and reinvest in their farms. You see a lot of farmers selling their farms to move into rubber plantation now, and even the worst thing, illegal mining.
Yeah.
So it's just about the farmer welfare. Once farmers are happy, once they see that they are receiving what they deserve to receive, they reinvest into their farms. Because if I'm a cocoa owner, I will not want to see my cocoa farm die off. I definitely want to reinvest and then get more cocoa because I know that once I do that, I get more money. But then if there's no will of the farmers to see that they are going to enjoy from increased production and then they can get the benefits elsewhere, then they're going to be stuck with it.
I've always said that when it gets to a point where farmers are really, really educated about cocoa price on the world market, it could be a disadvantage for the current structure that we are having because it is so difficult. Anybody who knows how a cocoa farm is done, it's not just the numbers.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult for a farmer to say that this year I got half bag, I got 1 bag, or I got 2 bags. It's not that easy. So when we are talking about the increment that, if you sell 1 bag, get 400 cedis, let me tell you, there are farmers who are not even able to get half a bag in a season. It's difficult like that. So they want the prices to be increased to the extent that those who are able to produce more bags will benefit. Those who are still producing half bags, 1 bag, and all of that will also benefit. Because sometimes we have to gather from different places to get the over 600,000 metric tons we export every year. And you spoke about the difference between what farmers get and even the world market price. Where in Ecuador, for instance, what we are learning is that farmers are able to get about 90% of the world market price. That's a big incentive for anybody to go into, cocoa farming. And we've also spoken about the current structure of Ivory Coast, which possibly, if we don't take time, will lead or will actually result into most of our cocoa beans being smuggled from Ghana to Ivory Coast, because now Ivory Coast now has the backing of Chinese investors, where they are able to establish, cocoa processing plant. And what happens is that China has a certain, they have access to that cocoa that is processed, about 40% or so, according to the reports out there. They are able to take it, and that is even a disadvantage for the European market at the moment, who are complaining currently. And so Ivory Coast has put itself in a very strategic position where they are able to attract cocoa farmers within their own space and black market players who are currently possibly in the Ghanaian space and are smuggling cocoa into Ivory Coast. Because you look at this price, and I heard Nana Oboade saying that, well, you can't compare Ivory Coast. And I asked myself, Ivory Coast and Ghana is not like Ghana and America. It's just, we are just neighbors. So, and it's just a border that's, separating us. So smuggling is important. And looking at the difference in price is also very, very important. And we all know that the response that came in is simply because of where Ivory Coast price is at the moment. Other than that, I'm sure government would have kept the price for a period of time, maybe before trying to do a rethink and all of that. So what happens in Ivory Coast is as important as what happens in the Ghanaian economy. It's a big, big factor, and the conditional probability involved here is very high to the extent that if you decide to neglect it, what happens is that you have people producing the cocoa in Ghana, but they will be selling the beans to Ivory Coast, especially if you look at Western region, for instance, which is just a border region to the Ivory Coast. Yeah, and Bono region, Bono Ahafo, Bono East, all these are regions that are very close to the Ivory Coast. And it makes it easy for some of these smugglers to get the cocoa beans from the farmers to export. I mean, if a farmer has a bag right now, and there's a smuggler who is willing to buy at 3,800 and go and sell in Ivory Coast for 4,000 cedis and also make a 200 profit on every bag that he sells, that's a big incentive for smugglers. Yeah. So closing this gap we cannot take it for granted. It's very, very important, and I see it to be very sad when anybody tries to downplay this, because this is our situation. Ivory Coast, the gap between Ghana and Ivory Coast keeps widening, and it gives them that sort of competitive advantage over us, right? Where they are able to wait for us to set our price before they come in. So we always have to do the chasing game, where we need to look at what Ivory Coast has done before we catch up. And Ivory Coast will know that, well, definitely we are the biggest player, so let's wait. Ghana will always set first. We decided to set first in August rather than the September usual period. And Ivory Coast had enough time to assess their situation and set a good price. This is the big gap that we are seeing. I mean, should we even go ahead to possibly say that what happens in Ivory Coast should not be a bother to us?
Oh, no, because definitely you know that there are Ghanaian cocoa beans in these figures for Ivory Coast.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the numbers from Cocoa Board,
it's just like the DSTV situation.
Exactly, just like the DSTV situation. So, and also when we are speaking about the numbers, Cocoa Board was set up to protect farmers, because sometimes with the cocoa price on the world market, it fluctuates. So when cocoa prices come down, that's where you protect the farmers. When it goes up, you will enjoy. But then when it comes down to when you are protecting farmers, Cocoa Board will bleed. So when the price goes up, they have to, take back some of the money that they give to farmers and subsidies and all of that.
Yeah.
So that's where balancing is a trick. Because if you are protecting farmers, all right, but then when it's time for everyone to eat, farmers say that they're not eating again, then you have a problem. And this is what's going to fall at the smuggling. And to be honest, there's smuggling going on. If you look at the numbers from Cocoa Board themselves, it's outstanding. And the amounts we lose from smuggling, and if you put that next to how much farmers just want to, because the thing about cocoa farming is that it's not about being rich or something. It's about being recognized for what you're contributing
to the economy. Yeah.
Because definitely farmers know that cocoa is one of the most important bedrocks of the economy. Just like the way right now gold some will come and go away, but cocoa will be there because cocoa prices are almost always stable. It's just over the past few years that some fluctuations here and there.
Possibly because of the Chinese game and all of that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So cocoa farmers, once they are happy, and I keep saying this, once cocoa farmers are happy, they are going to increase their yields. Once their yields increase, you have cocoa farms and cocoa trees, they last for a very long time. Once you have your trees, you can keep harvesting from them for a very long time. So it's about protecting farmers, helping them, reinvest their proceeds. And if you don't give them enough, they cannot reinvest, and then we cannot increase their yields.
Talking about smuggling, this was a figure that we got, the average figure. And if you look at what we even lost in 2023, 2024, and you made an important point that definitely you find some of these figures here.
Yeah.
And I was surprised when we were doing the comparative analysis, what we saw was that Cameroon, Nigeria, were all getting very, very close to where Ghana is at the moment. And so if we are saying that we are number 2, we need to look at the absolute differences, where at the moment the gap between us and Ivory Coast is very, very wide, but between us and Nigeria, not that high. Between us and Cameroon, not that as high as what is between us and Ivory Coast.
Because of the price. Once the price is high, farmers elsewhere will enter the market and sell. Once the price goes down, that's when they leave. So once prices are high for a very long time, you should expect that other players will step into the game and try and take advantage of it.
I mean, if you're able to add 160,000 metric tons to our beans, right, what we export in a year, that should take us to a region of, let's say, estimated about 800,000 metric tons a year. That will be significant enough for us to be a key player in this whole cocoa geopolitics that is going on, with China playing an integral role, where China wants to be the next big hub when it comes to cocoa production, and then also in terms of the retail market. Because China has seen that with this whole cocoa game, it is not your ability to produce the cocoa. I mean, you don't have to produce the cocoa to enjoy, because retailers are getting about 34% of the value chain. Farmers are getting just about 6.6%. And so China wants to position itself. But we can only be part of this juicy geopolitical shift if we get into the position of Ivory Coast. Why did China even decide to go to Ivory Coast before us? Because they know how Ivory Coast is important in this whole value chain. And why? Because we have not been able to solve an issue. I mean, we have our own illegal mining issue and all of that, but smuggling is taking a lot from us. And you have been digging. This is what you found. I mean, $3.2 billion between 2021 and 2025. That is the amount we've lost to smuggling. How big is the market, and what do we even know so far as the trend is concerned?
Yeah, and these are just estimates. Cocoa Board estimates, because you can never tell how much is being smuggled.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cocoa Board estimates every single year. And if you do the average world price for these years with Cocoa Board's own estimates, you see that we've lost about $3 billion in the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Which is significant. And then one thing to keep in mind that these are estimates from Cocoa Board. So
could be high.
Definitely could be high. And also, we are also gauging it on the average world market price. So sometimes when the price went to about $11,000, we didn't use the $11,000.
Outliers can always influence.
Exactly. So we've lost much more than this. And once you keep losing, so in the past 2 years, we lose about $1 billion every year. Last year, our cocoa beans, we couldn't reach $2 billion.
Yeah, 2.7 billion, right? Or 2.7 billion. Yeah.
Exactly. And once you keep
1.9, 1.7.
Yeah. So once you keep losing revenue from smuggling, and then you're not increasing your cocoa yields, it means that your cocoa industry is on the downward path.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the numbers, but one thing that Ghana is being praised for is the fact that if you look at our early period, cocoa that we've produced so far and are sending to the warehouse in the first part of this season, it looks very impressive. And the data shows that those who are familiar with the issue says that the volumes have quadrupled from, I think, 11,000 tons to, I think, more than 170 or something like that. I'm not so sure of the numbers. But what you're seeing is that with even the current price and the fact that we are still, bedeviled with illegal mining and all other issues, the yields this year and how much we are even sending to the warehouses have quadrupled, which means that we are expecting more next season.
Yeah.
But the question is, before we even wrap up, why don't we take advantage of the kind of, willingness we are getting from farmers to produce more and to even bring their beans to the government to go to the warehouse? Why don't you take advantage of that and possibly maybe give them about 800 cedis more per bag? Is it so difficult for government?
I mean, it's all about the numbers. It's all about revenue. Once government decides to increase cocoa boards, the farm gate price, they lose revenue at the side.
Yeah.
So it's about doing the analysis to see if the revenue you are going to lose in the short term will make up for in the long term when cocoa farmers reinvest their proceeds in their farms and then decide to, and then start producing much more in the next 5-10 years than the revenue now. So it's about the priority of the government now, whether balancing on books right now or waiting the next 5 to 10 years and then reaping the benefits of increased cocoa use, which are more sustainable.
Well, so that's the situation of Ghana. Price differentials between us and neighboring countries compelling us to lose, on average, about 160,000 metric tons or 150,000 metric tons of our cocoa beans to smugglers. You've seen the cost, which is currently about what we've done per our estimates and Cocoa Board's estimate. This could be more. It's about $3.2 billion that we are losing to smugglers. Why? Because of price differentials. How do we solve this situation? The ball is in the court of government. How they'll play it, we'll be here to analyze. This has been Beyond the Numbers with me, Isaac Ofieje, and I did this with
Caleb Ziblin. Next week.
Yeah.